All right, welcome to Synergy Coaching and Wellness, the Warrior in a Garden podcast. Today we're going to be talking about establishing a meditation practice. We're going to talk about what the health, wellness, and longevity benefits of a practice like that are, and we'll talk a little bit about stress and stress management. We'll talk about where stress comes from, and we'll talk about the impacts that stress has on the body, and then we'll wrap this all around and talk about how a meditation practice can help break that cycle of chronic stress or adaptive stress. So I want to start today by just reading a quote from Lao Tzu. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Lao Tzu, he was a philosopher, warrior from China, I think 1,500 years ago. But anyway, long time ago. And he had a quote that was, "If you are depressed, you're living in the past. If you are anxious, you're living in the future. If you are at peace, you are living in the moment." So, and that's kind of what we're looking to as we dive into meditation practice, what that is, what that means, regardless of what level we're going to be talking about. And we're going to talk about a lot of different levels, and we're going to define, what meditation is in a lot of different ways, because to be completely honest, meditation takes on a different meaning for a lot of different people, okay? And we're going to talk about that a little bit at length as we get into the podcast just a little bit. But at any rate, we're going to define that for you. And we're going to also look at a couple of other things as well. We're going to look at stress. And stress management, for those of you that follow the Synergy Coaching and Wellness podcast, you'll be familiar with what the 5 pillars of longevity are. And pillar 4 is all about stress and stress management and how we go about reducing stress in our life and the beneficial impacts on just our wellness, our longevity, our fitness, how we feel, how important it is to de-stress and create a situation in our lives that we're not stuck in this adaptive mode of stress. So anyway, I want to kind of just outline real quickly the format of our podcast for today. Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about stress and define stress for you. We're going to talk about sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, reducing cortisol levels, and we're going to talk about the physiological benefits of reducing those cortisol levels. Then we're going to talk about the different levels of meditation and mindful practice. And, like I had mentioned just a minute ago, meditation just kind of takes on all these different meanings, and we'll kind of break that down a little bit. I basically break it down into 6 different levels of what meditation is, and they're all a little bit different, and no, you don't need to strive for the highest levels at all to get the benefits of adapting a meditation practice. And then finally, we're going to talk about what's the best way to structure a meditation or mindfulness practice, and how do you plug that into your daily habits. As always, if you're watching this on YouTube, please smash that like button and subscribe to the Synergy Coaching channel. As we continue to grow the channel, we want to reach out to more and more people. And, if you like and subscribe to the channel, whether it be through the Warrior in a Garden or whether it be through the Synergy Coaching and Wellness podcasts, it kind of helps us with those algorithms and helps us to grow the channel and our outreach. So let's kind of talk a little bit about stress. Let's talk about where it comes from. How we go about breaking the cycle of stress. Probably the best place to start, though, is where does it come from exactly, and how does it impact our body? So as we look at stress, we basically have competing nervous systems within our human structure. Okay, you've got the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight response within our body, and then you've got the parasympathetic nervous system, which is kind of when we're at ease. And each of these nervous systems, they work on different parts of our being. So let's just go ahead and look at parasympathetic first, because that's kind of where we want to live as much as we can, with the parasympathetic nervous system being the predominant nervous system. So when we look at parasympathetic, all of our bodily functions are enhanced by the parasympathetic nervous system, whether that be digestion, whether it be a calming heart rate, what immune system, increased immune efficiency comes from the parasympathetic side of things. Basically anything that's healing or anything that has to do with regrowth, that resides within the parasympathetic. So that's where we want to be. Where we wind up most of the time is living in the sympathetic nervous system, and that's the proverbial fight or flight mode, and there's a lot of reasons why. Let me back up for just a minute. Let's talk about what that is exactly and why we even have a sympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic nervous system is built into our being for survival. Okay, 1,000 years ago, prior to the way we live today, we lived in nature, and there were any number of challenges that would arise in nature that we would need an immediate response for survival, whether that be being chased by an animal, any type of emergency situation that we would have in nature. The sympathetic nervous system would kick in, and what happens is when it kicks in, your blood level rises, your heart rate rises, blood pressure rises, but most importantly, your cortisol is triggered. Okay, and the cortisol level, as it rises, it has one primary function, and that is to create energy for the body. Immediate energy that helps us to solve whatever emergency situation the body's facing. So what happens over a period of time is this cortisol level kicks up, and the first thing that it does is it increases blood sugar. Okay, and it does that through immediately tapping into the insulin to spike the insulin and to begin to create and pull glucose into the system, because glucose is our immediate energy that the body utilizes. So for a short period of time, that's probably okay. As a matter of fact, if it is a truly emergency situation, it's necessary, okay? Because, if you're being chased by an animal, you need that energy so that you can sprint away and survive. What happens, though, is in the way that we live today, we wake up every morning with an alarm clock, and most of the time we're oversleeping. So we're already, as we get out of bed, we're beginning this stress process of, are we going to get to work on time? Then on our way to work, we get stuck in traffic, or traffic is horrific and people are moving in and out. You've got your radio on, if you're listening or watching any kind of news, it's always bad news. You've just got all of these inputs in society today that have a tendency to trigger that stress response. And as you trigger that stress response, the cortisol levels continually stay activated. And cortisol is a killer. It is the one thing that stress creates that drives these different things. It creates high blood pressure. It can lead to cardiovascular disease. We just talked about how it raises blood sugar and insulin levels, so it leads to insulin resistance. over a period of time, because this blood sugar is constantly raised, it begins to get stored. And with the cortisol response, that storage doesn't take place in the exterior belly fat. Okay, it gets stored in visceral fat, which visceral fat is the fat that gets stored around your liver, around your organs, and it's the most unhealthy fat. So it's very unhealthy. Obviously, if you're storing fat, you're gaining weight. If your insulin levels are increased all the time because you've got this heightened blood sugar all the time, you run the risk of landing in type 2 diabetes. It impacts digestion. Okay, it negatively impacts your immune response. It drives down your sex drive, and over a period of time, it can even lead to gluconeogenesis, which is it leads to muscle atrophy. So there's just this whole gamut of negative things that can happen when your cortisol levels are constantly raised. And, we want to definitely stay away from those things as much as possible. We haven't even touched on all the different diseases that being insulin resistant can cause, and we've covered those in some other videos. So anyway, so that should give you a pretty clear idea of just how negative stress is. Short term, the fight or flight is necessary because, there are times that we find ourselves in emergency situations that we need that quick response. So it's very important that we have a sympathetic nervous system. But what happens is you've got parasympathetic and sympathetic. And ideally, you'd be with the parasympathetic kind of up most of the time, okay? Because you're more relaxed when that happens. But they're never, as one goes up, the other goes down. As one goes down, the other goes up. It's kind of a seesaw effect that you have. And what happens is, with the sympathetic nervous system and the lifestyle that we tend to create and live in the modern world, it drives up the sympathetic all the time. So you've got the sympathetic operating up here at this high level, and then you've got the parasympathetic operating at a lower level. And what happens is you wind up with adaptive stress. And what happens with adaptive stress is it becomes chronic. And that chronic stress is where you really run into a lot of the different health and wellness issues that are associated with stress. But you can break that cycle. And that's why we look at meditation and we look at different types of stress relief. And meditation is probably the most efficient way to do it, but certainly exercise, and there are other ways to do it as well. But meditation, if you can just find time to do some of the meditation practices that we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes, it'll help drive down the physiological response to this overblown sympathetic adaptation. So let's talk a little bit about, why meditation, what are some of the physiological benefits of meditation, and as importantly as mindfulness. And when we talk about mindfulness, I'll harken back to the Lao Tzu quote, that it's more of living in the moment. And as we start outlining meditation, you'll see exactly how mindfulness ties into to a meditation practice. Now, mindfulness has a lot of other attributes as well. Some we will not get into today. That moves more towards an expanded practice. But at any rate, so some of the physiological benefits of a meditation and mindfulness practice is, number one, it will aid in unraveling the negative effects of chronic stress. So as we're here on the seesaw, okay, the moment we take time to just sit and breathe, which is one of the most basic methodologies of meditation, is just sitting and breathing, it breaks that response and it brings the parasympathetic up. And as the parasympathetic goes up, the sympathetic goes down. So you'll find that the body relaxes, and it creates all of these health and wellness efficiencies within the body. You know, your digestion becomes improved, your your blood pressure will go down, your blood sugar will decrease. It'll help with insulin resistance. All of the things that were negative that I mentioned just a few minutes ago, this begins to combat those things. Another thing too, as the body relaxes, it becomes more efficient. And we talk a lot, especially in Pillar 5, about the body's energy, and Pillar 3 is having an efficient body. So as our body's relaxed and our musculature relaxes, our energetic body becomes more efficient. And that leads to so many different wellness, improved wellness aspects. Another thing too is when we talk about genetics, as we meditate, I can't remember the name of the book. I think the name of the book is called You Are the Placebo, and I cannot remember the author, and I apologize for that. But that book is all about gene expression and how certain behaviors that we as human beings have lead to particular gene expressions. So some genetic expression is negative. We always want to strive for the positive and upregulate the positive gene expression. And meditation, I want to say the number was, any people that were consistent on a meditation practice expressed positively well over 2,000 genes. And that's huge. So if we pick up just a meditation practice and we're consistent with it, we can upregulate over 2,000 health genes. And finally, when we look at, and we're going to talk about some of the higher levels of meditation as well, as you move into higher levels of Qigong work, higher levels of meditation, definitely higher levels of Neigong work, you're going to learn how to mobilize your internal energy. And tying with that, your body, you create such a high level of mindfulness that you begin to become aware of when things aren't exactly right, and you can kind of manage and manipulate your wellness. But that's a very deep level of work, and we might talk about that a little bit as we dive into the various levels of meditation. It's important to understand, though, that meditation and mindfulness practice is a very important answer to minimizing stress, and creating a situation to where you're bringing down that fight or flight and you're raising the parasympathetic, so that your body can act as it should in a wellness respect. So let's talk about different levels of meditation. And meditation's kind of a funny thing. When you talk about meditation and mindfulness practice, a lot of people hearken themselves straight to Buddhist monks and Taoist monks and Hare Krishna folks, that, and a lot of New Age stuff that is a little bit off-putting to a lot of people. Some of it's because we don't understand it, but a lot of it is just because there's such a dogma that's tied to meditation. And I don't doubt for 1 minute that in the comment sections we'll have some meditation purist that's going to bring up their version of meditation and why it's better, and I guess that's fine. But the reality of it is I come from a Taoist practice, and we have very specific methodology and qualities that we try and build within the body. There's a whole pathway, and we'll talk about those at length in some other videos. I'm not about getting into deep levels of meditation today. and certainly don't want to get into the dogmas that surround internal work and especially meditation. But I will tell you that over the course of years, as I look at the varying levels of meditation, I focus and have broken them down into 6. There's probably actually a 7th level that is almost unattainable living in the real world. You probably would have to, live like a Taoist monk in order to attain it. So we won't even talk about that today. But I've broken it down over into 6 different levels of meditation, in different ways that you can practice in a real world experience, how you can practice meditation. And we'll start out with just relaxation, okay? And when I talk about relaxation, I mean disconnecting, okay? I mean taking time to switch off, taking time to just sit still. The wellness benefits that you can achieve just from turning your phone off, turning your TV off, finding a nice quiet place up in the mountains or by a lake, or even a nice quiet spot in your backyard or in a park to where you can just go sit and be still. It would be ideal if that you could just kind of break free of not thinking about the world around you and not thinking about all of the different challenges that you have on a daily basis, but just sitting still for a half hour, 45 minutes to an hour. Just sit down and take time to just break away from all of the inputs of the world. You'll be shocked. I don't know, if you've got an iPhone, I have an iPhone, it pretty much tells you each week how much screen time you utilize. And every time I see that, and I don't think I use my phone nearly as much as most people do, I am always shocked at how much screen time I actually have. And then I've got time in front of a computer, and then I've got time in front of clients, and I've got just all of these different inputs. And, all of these lead to a stressful life, and you need to take time to just sit still. Sometimes you just need to sit still and disconnect from all of that. And breathe. Just sit still and breathe. And you'll find that your stress levels, because on the exhale, that is parasympathetic. So as you breathe out, you relax. As you breathe in, that's sympathetic. But as you exhale, and if you just focus on just sitting still and just breathing, you'll be amazed at the stress-reducing benefits you get from just sitting still, making time to do it. So once we've learned how to sit still, the next level of meditation, these are mine, okay? For me, the next level is contemplation. And contemplation is taking time to have thoughtful moments, being mindful of what's around you immediately in the moment. Not thinking about, the task that you've got to do at the office tomorrow. Not thinking about, where's rent coming from. Not thinking about paying the electric bill. I'm thinking about just thoughtful moments to where you're in the moment and you're just appreciating what's around you. That level of contemplation goes a step deeper. And of course, you'll want to tie relaxed breathing to this. And it's just breathing in and breathing out. And it's healthier to breathe in through your nose. You always hear about mouth breathers, and there's actually science to the fact that mouth breathing is unhealthy. And we may actually do a video on that one day. It's pretty interesting stuff. But at any rate, breathe in through your nose. You can exhale out the mouth. That's fine. A lot of different breathing and meditative practices. Breathe in through the nose and then exhale through the mouth. But anyway, so contemplation, just thoughtful moments. Prayer is a method of contemplation. No matter what your religion is, prayer is contemplation, and those are thoughtful moments, and they can bring you peace as well. And as you're in those peaceful modes, the parasympathetic raises and the sympathetic lowers, and that's what our target is. So the next level of meditation mindfulness practice is enhanced breathing patterns. Now this is where you start getting into what people think about when they truly think about a meditation practice. It's not required to have varying patterns, although they all have different interaction within the body. So when we talk about enhanced breathing patterns, we're talking about controlled breathing, okay? And that could be as simple as I'm just going to breathe in 4 counts, I'm going to exhale 4 counts. And it's focused breathing. So you'll sit still and you'll just breathe, okay? And then as you breathe, you're going to have focused breathing patterns. A lot of what, the first breathing patterns that I learned 30 years ago, it was called Ho-Ten-Chi breathing. And it's actually been adopted into a lot of stress management practices. And I can't remember what they call it now, but it's basically, a breathing pattern where you'll breathe in 4, you'll hold 2, you'll breathe out 4. You'll breathe in 4, hold 2, breathe out 4. Or you can hold 4, and then you can exhale, and like if you, it's a match-up type breathing system, and it's called Ho-Ten-Chi. And so you breathe in 4, hold 4, breathe out 4, and then you can even hold empty for 4. So it's just all of these different types of connecting those two. And if you want to hold for half, you can hold for half. So if my breathing pattern is 4, 2, 4, 2, you can certainly do that too. And I actually teach Ho-Ten-Chi breathing in our Qigong basic class, because it's a good way to get started on just a meditative practice. And if you're interested in that, you can just visit the website at www.synergycoaching.com. And you can, I set a price of I think $10 on the intro. You can pay whatever you want on that particular class. I've got it set up as a pay what you want kind of class, just to get people engaged in what they want to practice. So anyway, so that's the idea behind enhanced breathing patterns. And then at some point within the enhanced breathing, you'll work on what's called anchoring the breath. And basically what that is like you just begin to focus and sync your mind to where you begin to hold your breath down at below your belly button. And that's something we talk about a lot in the Intro to Qigong class. So the next level is, I call it intention, attention, and mind fasting. And some of that is dependent upon what your school of thought is. So like I started out in the Shaolin tradition. Okay, so that's a Buddhist practice. I will tell you that Buddhist practices utilize a lot of intention. So within their breathing pattern and within their meditative practices, there's a lot of intention on what they're trying to accomplish with their meditative practices. And I'll use, reverse abdominal breathing as a for instance on this one. And I'll go ahead, I'm going to bounce back to this in just a minute. Attention is more of a Taoist practice. So intention is when you look at it and you focus on making something happen. Attention is where you allow things to happen through paying attention, and your body creates these qualities. And that's more of a Taoist practice, which as I've grown in the arts and practice, my internal work is almost all Taoist at this point. I find that as the body needs to develop qualities in order to progress. And Now I'll bounce back, and I'll use reverse abdominal breathing as a for instance on this. In the Buddhist practice, in order to do reverse abdominal breathing, they will use sashes to tie off the abdominal region to where you have no choice but to reverse abdominal breathe. In the Taoist practice, as you develop the necessary qualities and you've developed the dantian, and you've created, a strong ball of qi within the dantian and energy, it automatically connects with the Mingmen in the back, and the qualities that you've created, I won't say force, it just happens naturally that you begin to reverse abdominally breathe within your practice. So that's the difference between intention and attention. You can certainly reach a point with the Shaolin methodology of reverse abdominal breathing, but it can also have some negative impacts if you're not careful. If you allow things to happen naturally, as they should by developing the qualities within your body, as is what happens within the Taoist practice, it's a little bit healthier that way. It takes a little bit more time, but it's healthier. So anyway, so that's that. And then mind fasting is really important as the third aspect of this level. You can actually use that with enhanced breathing patterns as well, and you probably should use it with almost any level of this. But mind fasting typically comes into play as you're beginning to try and really reach deeper levels. And what mind fasting is learning how to, the Taoists call it taming the wild monkeys. So if you ever sit still for even a few minutes, all of these thoughts will continually pop into your mind. And what you want to do is you want to have the ability to kind of clear those out. Okay, if it pops in, clear it right out until you reach a point to where your only focus is internal. Okay, your only focus is on, what's happening within yourself. And once you've reached that point, your mind is not taking over the process. And that's where you start this process of mind fasting. So the next level is, and this is not really, it's almost like it branches here. Okay, so when you look at like the deeper levels of meditation that you can acquire through intention, attention, mind fasting, it's a little bit different than Qigong, Daoyin, and Tai Chi. So it's almost like it branches here, okay? Because they're different, but maybe not necessarily on a different level, except that as you begin Qigong, Daoyin, and Tai Chi work, you actually start focusing inward, and you begin to focus more on internal energies, Qi. And so that becomes a little bit different, and that's a higher level. Qigong work actually helps teach you how, all three of these actually teach you how to connect your body in a way that is a little bit different than any other type of practice. And I explain this a lot in the Qigong courses that we have online. But at any rate, that's the next level. We won't get too deep into those today. If you want to learn more, I have some other podcasts out there, and you can certainly, like the Yi Jin Jing classic podcast that I did a couple months ago, would certainly explain a lot of this. The final level is called esoteric and alchemical and Neigong, and this is just a much deeper practice. This is the type of practice to where you've created an energetic body, you have an abundance of internal energy, and you know how to consolidate that energy and manipulate that energy, and it creates a response and a balance within the body that is a higher level that you almost have to experience it to understand it. And this Neigong, this alchemical and esoteric level, is probably the deepest level of meditation prior to some of the deeper levels I referred to earlier that we're not going to talk about today. So anyway, so those are the different levels of meditation and mindfulness. And basically, and like I said before, you don't have to reach the highest levels to get the benefit of a meditation practice. I mean, you can, honestly, if you just sat still every day for 30 minutes, 15 minutes, start out with 15 minutes, just sit still and disconnect from everything and build on that. You'll find that it will give you remarkable benefits, because you want to break that cycle to where you're stuck in the sympathetic mode. Okay, that is the most important aspect of this video today, is I want you to break that point right there. I want you to not be stuck in the fight or flight mode all the time. And as you can sit still for a little bit, you break that mode. And the more you sit still, the more you break that mode, and the body responds. The body's an amazing thing. If you treat it properly and you give it its proper input, it will do what it's supposed to do. So if you take the time each day and just sit still for, like I said, start out 15 minutes. Just, go sit on the front porch for 15 minutes and just breathe. Don't take your phone. Don't do anything like that. Just disconnect for 15 minutes and just, just create some mindful practices. So how does this look? What does it look like? And when we get into the final aspect of what we're going to talk about today, it's about structuring your meditation and mindfulness practice. And the most important thing is you got to create daily habits. Okay. I meditate first thing in the morning. Okay. So my meditation time, not my Qigong work, not my Tai Chi work, my meditation time is I wake up, I move around for just a few minutes just to get acclimated to the day, and then I'll either go out on the patio or I'll go upstairs into the office, depending upon how cold it is, the weather. And I've got multiple different meditative practices that I do. And I typically take 45 minutes to an hour every day, first thing in the morning, to do my meditation work. So you should do the same thing. Meditation is the greatest way to start your day. So, if your morning consists of getting up, getting a cup of coffee, sitting down, watching the news, that is an awful way to start your day. What would be more beneficial for you for a long-term wellness strategy would be to get up. If you want a cup of coffee, that's fine. Get a cup of coffee. And then whatever level of meditation you want to practice, take time to do that. Start out with 15 minutes, completely disconnected, and just start your day in a very mindful way. You'll be shocked and amazed at the benefits that creates. The Chinese call it Yang Shen Fa. Okay? And what Yang Shen Fa is it's a structured way of living, okay? And there are... So I cover Yang Shen Fa at length in the Synergy Academy program. That's part of the whole process of the mindfulness and wellness aspects of what we do in that particular class. So anyway, so like I'm saying, every day create time to start your day properly. It's really important. And that aspect will help you really bring down and start your day down here, instead of, when you wake up late. And that'd be another thing, is make sure that you get up in plenty of time. Oh, and set your sleep patterns to where they're consistent as well. But at any rate, if the alarm goes off and you hit the snooze button and you hit it again, and then you finally recognize that, oh crap, I've got 15 minutes to get out the door so I can be to work on time, that is not a good way to start your day. You should ease into your day, and you should take some time to practice some level of meditation, and then the rest of your day is going to work so much better for you. So at any rate, that's basically all we're going to talk about today. And I will add this. Let me add one more thing. Throughout the course of your day, you'll find your stress levels go up. All right. Let's just say you go into work and, your boss hits you with a massive project that they want to get done in, 2 days. And your stress level goes from here to here. I understand, been there, done that. Learn how to recognize when you get those spikes in your stress levels, and just take 5-10 minutes, disconnect and breathe, and then attack the day. So anyway, so that's one more thing, and you can learn the signs. Once you start feeling what it feels like to be relaxed, you start to recognize more what it feels like when you're stressed. When you're stressed all the time, it's all you know, and it becomes very difficult to recognize your stress levels going up because they're always up. So at any rate, that's basically it for today. It's really important, and it can create some amazing health, wellness, and especially longevity benefits to pick up a meditation practice. And I strongly encourage you to do it. It can be one of the most impactful things you do, and it only requires 30 minutes a day. Even when you start getting into the higher levels of practice, it never takes more than 30 or 45 minutes unless you just want it to. So at any rate, pick up a meditation practice. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video today. Again, if you haven't already, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And as always, I appreciate it, and good luck in your practice.